Dodgeball. If you don't know what it is, it's a game in the United States. You draw a line and you get these rubber balls twice the size of your little first grade head, and you throw them at each other as hard as you can until you hit the other person. And then you're out. It's like tag, but more violent. And I was in first grade. We finished the game, and I'm walking by the door, and the other classmates decided to have a little fun and take the balls and hit me as I'm standing by the wall. So my head bounced off like one of those boxing things, you know, boom, 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 boom. And it was quite funny. It had to be, because as I was going unconscious, I remembered all my classmates laughing with my teachers too. And now I was in the nurse's office and my mom had come to get me. And my mom just says, "Oh, baby, it's okay. Mom's here now, it's safe. I'm going to take you to the emergency room," just after I finished talking to the principal. I learned a lot of new curse words that day. And so you can imagine growing up in Kansas City in the 70s and 80s was a little different. It was not as easy for people that looked a little different. We were less than 100 miles from the KKK headquarters of our area, and things were a little not good. You couldn't speak Spanish very easily, things like this, you know, stay low, keep quiet. We were left alone a lot because both parents worked. So like an 8-year-old with my little brother, and we're at home alone because they got to work and they can't pay for a babysitter, and they tell you, never answer the door. Don't answer the door unless it's somebody you know. So you're like all day long, like, hope nobody rings the doorbell. And you're, you know, parents get home, you're like, okay, good, I can breathe. And the one thing that made everything better was the holidays. That was our refuge. And the backbone of that was Mom. She made the holidays incredible. Everyone was welcome. Everyone was extremely fed. There was like 20, 30 people all the time. And it was every holiday, even some I think we made up. And it was amazing. She created this world where everyone was welcome, and the only thing you had to fear was how spicy the enchiladas were. And it was great. So we had this really wonderful holidays with lots of people, and it didn't matter what holiday. There was lots of holidays to make up. My favorite was Halloween. It was the one day a year I could go out by myself and look the same as everybody else in my Spider-Man costume, right? I didn't have to worry about anything. And that became my sanctuary. Holidays were the sanctuary because, you know, you get beat up. And Mom was the president of Holiday Land, by the way. She made it all happen. You know, everybody was welcome, even that uncle that you don't like. And she overfed him too. But we would have these big celebrations and everybody would come, and it was quite touching. You know, it was great. I was safe there, and it was fantastic. So my whole life was like this, right? You get beat up in high school or humiliated in front of everybody. That's okay. Columbus Day is coming. Bad divorce, messy marriage. All right, Thanksgiving is coming, it'll be okay. No problem. Lose your job. All right, got fired. Labor Day is coming. It's a party. So it was all great. And about 20 years ago, Mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Now, at first, no big deal. In fact, even more people showed up because they heard. And she was fine. It was little things like, oh, call me by my brother's name or whatever, fun things. And over time, And Dad became her instant caregiver. He was right there. And as Mom declined over time, a little by little, fewer people would start coming. And Dad would get grumpier every year until there was a time when nobody was coming. It was freaking me out because my plausible self-deniability was just exploding. I had this holiday sanctuary was disappearing. So 2016, I'd come to Spain. It was my first time in Europe. And it was amazing. It was so beautiful. I didn't want to look like a tourist, okay? As an American, I didn't want to look like a tourist. So I bought this Spanish World Cup jersey from years ago because I was going to blend in. I didn't want to stick out. My whole life I stick out a little bit. I want to be okay. And I'm standing at the platform in Barcelona waiting for the train to Sevilla. And this abuela walks up to me and she just starts going 100 miles an hour in Spanish. And at this point, I don't know anything in Spanish, except for one I'm about to tell her. No hablo español. Hablo español un poquito. No entiendo. What? She starts yelling at me in Spanish even faster. And I find out from my wife, she said, because she understood Spanish, she said, you look Spanish, you speak Spanish, you dress Spanish, you're Spanish. Why are you messing with me? Cabezudo, hombre, huh? And she's like storms off. And I'm like, you ever had a panic attack and you can't breathe? I had the opposite of that here. After that encounter, I could breathe. I felt this huge blow out of me. Every day in Spain was like a holiday back home. And as soon as I got home back to the US, I made plans to move here. Didn't tell any of our family. We just did it. Made plans. There was one thing I had to do. So while Mom was still kind of good, and at this point she couldn't be by herself, I had to take her places. So every Sunday I would take her to the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art in Kansas City. And at first I was a little concerned. I would say, hey, you're really gonna get bored of this crap. I mean, it's the same stuff every week. And she looked at me and said, don't worry about it. I'm not gonna remember it next week. Just keep bringing me, it'll be great. Let's get a year pass. So we did. And we're in the parking garage and she's having a really good day. So I turned to her and I explained to her everything about why I want to move from when I was a kid up to now. And it was really difficult because I was terrified she might just get mad. And she turned to me and she looked at me like she used to when I was a little kid, when she like picked me up from school, when something happened. And she turned to me and said, it's my job to keep you safe until you're old enough to do it for yourself. It took you long enough. So go. Please go. I'm not the reason. You don't have to stay here anymore. Besides, I'm not going to remember you leaving. And then she turned her head and said, oh, hey, we're at the museum. Let's go in. I got to pee.